The room is silent. Too silent. Clint Eastwood sits in the back, watching Warner Brothers executives shift in their seats. They just finished watching Unforgiven. His hero kills an unarmed man, rides away into darkness. No redemption, no hope. Everything Hollywood westerns aren't supposed to be. The distribution head finally speaks. "Clint, we have concerns." 3 words that started a battle, one that would change Hollywood forever. But first, Clint had to make an impossible choice. It's December 1991. Clint is 61 years old. He's been waiting a decade to make this film, not because of studio red tape, because he wasn't ready. He needed to age into the role, needed the lines on his face, the weight in his eyes, the weariness that only real years can bring. William Money isn't a hero. He's a broken-down pig farmer, an alcoholic, a killer dragged back into violence by poverty and desperation. The film shows what killing actually does to people, how it stains them, changes them, destroys them. There's a scene where Ned gets whipped to death. It's brutal, ugly, hard to watch. Another scene where Money guns down an unarmed saloon owner begging for his life. No music swells, no justice served, just violence and its terrible cost. The ending? Money massacres everyone in the saloon, then rides away into the night. A text crawl says he disappeared, probably lived out his days somewhere. That's it. No redemption arc, no peace found, no lessons learned. Clint knew what he'd made, something true, something important, something that would make studio executives very, very uncomfortable. The silence stretches. Finally, Robert Kellerman, head of distribution, clears his throat. "Clint, it's powerful work, really powerful." But then comes the word that changes everything. But here's what the executives knew that Clint was betting against. Westerns were dead. Not dying, dead. The last major Western to make real money? Dances with Wolves in 1990. Before that, you had to go back years. The genre that built Hollywood had become box office poison. Audiences didn't want cowboys anymore. They wanted action heroes and dinosaurs and sci-fi spectacles. And Clint? His recent track record was shaky. Bird, his 1988 jazz biography, was critically loved. It lost money. White Hunter Black Heart in 1990 lost money. The Rookie that same year barely broke even. Clint Eastwood wasn't the guaranteed hit he used to be. Now he wanted Warner Brothers to bet $14 million on a dead genre, on a film where the hero isn't heroic, where violence isn't fun, where the ending offers zero hope. $14 million doesn't sound like much now, but in 1991, for a Western with an aging star, it was a massive gamble. The studio had every reason to be terrified. Plus, there was something else the executives understood, something Clint was deliberately ignoring. Audiences come to Clint Eastwood movies for a specific experience. The man with no name, Dirty Harry, the squinting hero who faces down evil and wins. They want to feel something when they walk out of the theater. They want to pump their fist, tell their friends, feel like justice was served. Unforgiven gave them none of that. It gave them a tired killer, murdering people and riding away into nothing. Kellerman leaned forward in his seat. "We need to discuss some adjustments." The word adjustments is Hollywood code. It means, "We think you're wrong." Kellerman chose his words carefully. The ending, primarily. It's very dark, very violent. The protagonist kills multiple people in cold blood, including an unarmed man. Then he just rides away. And we're told through text that he disappeared. There's no redemption, no resolution. Clint's voice stayed neutral. That's the point. "I understand artistically," Kellerman continued, "but commercially, audiences expect certain things from a Clint Eastwood Western. They expect the hero to be heroic. They expect justice. They expect a happy ending," Clint finished. "A satisfying ending," Kellerman corrected. This feels unfinished, like we cut away before the real ending. Another executive jumped in, the VP of production. The violence is extremely graphic. When Ned gets whipped to death, when your character shoots the unarmed saloon owner, it's brutal. We're worried about the rating, about whether audiences will be comfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. That's the entire point. But the executives weren't done. They had notes, lots of them. What if money doesn't kill the unarmed man? What if he shows mercy, proves he's changed? What if we add a scene at the end showing him peacefully farming with his children, give audiences hope, something to balance the darkness? What if we trim the whipping scene, make it less graphic, keep the R rating but make it more palatable? What if we add music to the final shootout, make it feel more like justice being served instead of just murder? Small changes, they said. Adjustments, enhancements. Kellerman played his trump card. Clint, we have $14 million invested. We need this to perform. Right now, I'm not confident mainstream audiences will embrace something this dark and morally complex. The room waited. Clint stood up. We need to have a different conversation. In my office, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. He walked out without another word. The executives sat in the empty screen room, wondering what they'd just triggered. They were about to find out. The script for Unforgiven was written by David Webb Peoples. That name should mean something. Peoples wrote Blade Runner, one of the greatest science fiction films ever made, a film that also got studio notes about being too dark, too weird, too uncommercial. Peoples sent Clint the Unforgiven script in the mid-1980s. Clint read it once, then again, then a third time. He knew immediately it was special. But he also knew he couldn't make it. Not yet. He was too young, too vital, too much the action hero. William Money needed to be played by someone who looked beaten down by life, someone who carried real weariness in their bones. So Clint waited. He bought the script, protected it, turned down offers from other directors who wanted to make it. He even considered giving it to Francis Ford Coppola at one point. But ultimately, he kept it for himself. For 10 years, that script sat in a drawer while Clint got older, while the lines deepened on his face, while his body slowed down, while he lived enough life to understand what William Money carried. This wasn't just another Western to him. This was the Western, the one that told the truth. The American West wasn't built by heroes. It was built by killers, by men who did terrible things and had to live with those things. The mythology of the gunslinger, the righteous man with a gun who makes things right, was a lie. Violence doesn't solve problems. It creates them. It spreads like a disease. It marks everyone it touches. That's what Unforgiven was about. And that's why changing the ending would destroy everything. If Money shows mercy, the film becomes about redemption. If he rides off to a peaceful life with his children, the film becomes about healing. If the violence is toned down, it becomes entertainment instead of truth. Clint had spent 20 years as a director, built Malpaso Productions from nothing, earned complete creative control, walked away from Warner Brothers once before in 1968 when they wouldn't give him freedom. He'd fought too hard and waited too long to compromise now. The next morning, the executives arrived at his office. They had no idea what was coming. 9 a.m. sharp. Kellerman walked into Clint's office with 2 other executives. Clint was already there. So was his longtime producer, his attorney. The chairs arranged for confrontation, not collaboration. Clint didn't offer coffee, didn't make small talk. "Let me be very clear," he started. "I've been trying to make this film for 10 years. I waited until I was old enough, until I looked weathered enough, until I had lived enough to understand what this character carries. This film is exactly what I intended. Every frame, every line, every moment of violence, every moment of moral complexity. This is the film." Kellerman tried to interrupt. "Clint, we're not trying to—" "You change the ending, you destroy the entire film," Clint continued, cutting him off. The whole point is that violence doesn't lead to redemption. William Money kills those men not because it's heroic, but because he's still the same killer he always was. He doesn't change. He doesn't get better. He survives. That's the truth. But audiences don't want that truth, the VP of production said. They want to see the hero triumph. They want to feel good leaving the theater. Clint's response was simple. Then they can watch a different movie. The temperature in the room dropped. This movie tells the truth. If Warner Brothers isn't comfortable distributing a film that tells the truth, then Warner Brothers doesn't have to distribute it. Kellerman's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening to take this to another distributor? No. The word hung in the air. I'm saying if you require changes to the ending, to the violence, to the tone, then I will shelve the film, lock it in a vault. No one will ever see it. I'd rather have no film than a compromised film. This wasn't a negotiation tactic. Everyone in the room understood that. Clint's attorney spoke up. Gentlemen, Mr. Eastwood's contract gives him final cut approval on all Malpaso productions. This isn't a negotiation. Mr. Eastwood is informing you of his decision.
Kellerman's face flushed red. Final cut doesn't mean we have to release a film we don't believe in. Warner Brothers can choose not to distribute. Then don't, Clint said simply. I'd rather the film never be seen than be seen in a compromised form. I've made over 20 films. I'll make more, but I won't make them badly just to satisfy executives who think they know better. Silence. Kellerman was calculating. Could he call this bluff? Could he pressure Clint? Could he win this fight? But it wasn't a bluff. Clint had walked away from Warner Brothers before. In 1968, he left to build Malpaso into one of Hollywood's most successful production companies. He didn't need them. They needed him. Can we take 24 hours to discuss internally? Kellerman finally asked. Take all the time you need, Clint replied. The film doesn't change either way. After the executives left, Clint's producer turned to him. You really willing to shelve it? Absolutely, Clint said without hesitation. I didn't wait 10 years to make a compromised version. 24 hours is a long time when $14 million hangs in the balance. Warner Brothers had to make a calculation, not about art, about business. Could they make money without Clint Eastwood? Yes, but it would hurt. He'd been with them for decades, delivered hits, built loyalty with audiences. Could Clint make money without Warner Brothers? Absolutely. Other studios would line up for his next project. Maybe not for Unforgiven, too risky, but for whatever came after. The leverage was all Clint's. But there was something else, something deeper than business calculations. If Warner Brothers forced changes and the film flopped, they'd be blamed for ruining it. If they released it unchanged and it flopped, they could say they supported the artist's vision. They'd look like the good guys either way. But if they killed it entirely, if they let Clint vault the film, that story would spread through Hollywood like wildfire. Directors would lose trust. Talent would go elsewhere. The next day, Kellerman called. Warner Brothers would distribute Unforgiven exactly as Clint had cut it. No changes, no softening, no redemption arc. The studio was betting everything that Clint knew his audience better than they did. August 1992 release date was set. Now came the real question. Would audiences prove Clint right or destroy his career? Warner Brothers' marketing team faced a problem. How do you sell a dark, violent, morally ambiguous Western starring a 62-year-old man? They made a bold choice. Lean into the darkness. The tagline, "It's a hell of a thing, killing a man." The trailers emphasized this wasn't your typical Western. This was something raw, real, uncompromising. "This isn't your grandfather's Western," became the whisper campaign. August 1992, Unforgiven hit theaters. The critics saw it first. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars, called it a film of great beauty and power. The New York Times used one word in their headline, masterpiece. Variety said it was Clint's best work as a director, maybe his best work, period.
Review after review praised the exact things Warner Brothers had feared: the darkness, the moral ambiguity, the uncomfortable truths about violence. The ending, William Money killing an unarmed man and riding into darkness, was called one of the most powerful conclusions in Western history. Everything the studio wanted to change became the film's greatest strength. But critics don't pay the bills, audiences do. Opening weekend, $15 million. Strong for a dark Western with no young stars. Strong for a hard R rating. But would it hold? Most films drop 50% their second weekend. Unforgiven dropped only 28%. Then something unusual happened. Word of mouth exploded. People weren't just recommending the film, they were insisting their friends see it, grabbing coworkers, calling family members. This wasn't just another movie, this was something important, something that needed to be witnessed. Week 3, the film actually went up in some markets. Week 5, still playing strong. Week 8, theaters that usually cycled films out kept it running. The film played for months, an incredibly unusual run for anything, especially for something this dark and challenging. The numbers kept climbing. 100 million domestic, then 120 million, then 140 million.
International audiences responded even stronger. They'd been hungry for westerns that told the truth, for American stories that didn't flinch. Final worldwide gross $159 million against a $14 million budget. More than 11 times its cost. One of the most profitable films of 1992. Proof that audiences didn't want what Warner Brothers thought they wanted. They wanted what Clint knew they needed. But the real vindication was still coming. March 1993, Oscar nomination announcements. Unforgiven received 9 nominations. The Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, Los Angeles, March 29, 1993. The 65th Academy Awards. Unforgiven walked in with 9 nominations. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Clint, Best Supporting Actor for Gene Hackman, Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Sound, Best Production Design. The competition was fierce. The crying game, the emotional gut punch that blindsided audiences. A Few Good Men, the crowd-pleasing courtroom drama with You Can't Handle the Truth. Scent of a Woman, Al Pacino chewing scenery and earning standing ovations. Howard's End, the prestige period piece that the Academy usually loved. Warner Brothers executives sat in the audience, the same executives who'd wanted to change the ending, who'd called it too dark, too violent, too unmarketable. They were about to watch the film they'd been afraid of sweep the night. Gene Hackman won Best Supporting Actor for playing the brutal sheriff. In his speech, he thanked Clint for having the courage to tell a difficult story honestly. The executives shifted in their seats. Best Film Editing went to Joel Cox. He thanked Clint for trusting his vision. Another shift. Then came Best Director, Clint Eastwood. He walked to the stage, thanked his crew, his producers, his cast. Notably, pointedly, he didn't thank any studio executives for believing in him, for supporting his vision, for trusting his instincts.
Because they hadn't. He'd believed in it himself. That had been enough. The executives felt every eye in the room on them. Finally, Best Picture, the biggest award of the night. And the Oscar goes to Unforgiven. 4 Oscars total. Could have been more. Clint lost Best Actor to Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman. Gene Hackman beat out supporting nominees, but 4 was enough. More than enough. Clint's acceptance speech was brief. I've been lucky to work with great people who trusted the story we were telling, who understood what we were trying to say. This film is exactly what it needed to be, and I'm grateful it found its audience. Exactly what it needed to be. The phrase landed like a hammer. Warner Brothers had wanted to change it, soften it, make it commercial. Audiences and the Academy had rewarded the uncompromised version instead. $159 million at the box office, 4 Oscars, universal critical acclaim. The film they'd wanted to bury had become the one they couldn't kill. Robert Kellerman sat in the audience, watching everything he'd been wrong about play out in front of the entire industry. His judgment had been exposed, his instincts proven false, his attempt to override one of the greatest filmmakers in history documented in the most public way possible. But that wasn't the end of the story. Warner Brothers never questioned Clint Eastwood again. Not on the bridges of Madison County, not on Mystic River, not on $1 Million Baby, not on Gran Torino or American Sniper, or any of the dozens of films he made over the next 30 years. The executives who wanted to change Unforgiven quietly disappeared into lesser positions, their names forgotten, their judgment questioned. Unforgiven became a case study. Film schools taught it, business programs analyzed it, the story of artistic integrity defeating commercial fear. The ending they wanted to destroy became the one film students still study today. And somewhere in Hollywood, someone just suggested changes to a director's film. That director is deciding right now whether to fight or fold. The ghost of Clint's choice still haunts every screening room, still asks the same question it asked in 1991. Will you bet everything on what you know is right?